Hi, everyone. Happy Friday to you all. I hope you had a wonderful Easter, and hopefully you're enjoying this beautiful weather that we are experiencing right now here in New Jersey. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, it is the latest edition of Maria and Fernando Talking Jersey. I know it's a series that has everyone talking. And, it is the Super Bowl of pro wrestling this weekend with WrestleMania 37. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I have been alive for all 37. So that should give you an idea. But you know what? With all due respect to all the tag teams participating this weekend, this right here is the damn best tag team that there is in the business right now. The dream team of political commentary in the state of New Jersey. Of course, joining me is New Jersey's premier advocate, Maria Rodriguez-Gregg. What's going on, partner?
Not much. Excited to talk about politics tonight.
Absolutely. We got a lot to cover here today. And let's start off with something I know resonates with you a lot, Maria, because as a woman and as a former legislator, there aren't that many of you. It's that simple. I'm not saying it to be mean, but there just aren't that many. And when we do have women in the legislature and women that are working hard and representing their constituency, those are the women we have to pay tribute to and honor, Republicans or Democrats. There might be some Dems I don't like ideologically, but I'm going to respect their contributions because it's a tough business to get into. And right now in Morris County, Assemblywoman BettyLou DeCroce, I don't know about you, but I'm seeing this story and it doesn't sit well with me. I really want to hear your thoughts about it.
Well, it doesn't sit well with me either. When this happened, she was basically what's happening was Morris County, they instituted a county line for this coming election. And so everybody knows about, the lines for any political party organization. Some counties have it, some don't. The majority in New Jersey, it's my understanding, the majority have it. So Morris County instituted one, and in Morris, the part of her district that lies in Morris County, she was not voted to receive the Morris County Republican organization line, which was something that's pretty shocking to me, considering last election, she was the top vote getter throughout the district and in all three counties where she represents, which is additionally Passaic, and then I believe was a little bit of Essex.
Small portion of Essex. I think the majority is Passaic and Morris County, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. And so she received the majority in the district. She was a top vote getter, and especially in Morris. And so, that was something that was absolutely surprising. I can see if this was somebody that wasn't resonating with voters, was really lagging behind the person that they did award the line to, which is the incumbents is Assemblyman Jay Weber, and then a new person, Christian Branco. I could see if she just, wasn't doing so well, but she is the top vote getter. She is, in the general, she's who people like the most. So it was something that was certainly surprising. Just beyond surprising. It just doesn't seem to make sense. It just seems like a stupid move, if you ask me. Morris County, the Morris County Republican organization, why would you, at a time where right now, the people that are at the top of the ticket, especially on the Democrat side, the top person is a Democrat. You have somebody that has position and power within New Jersey who is an effective legislator. To say that she isn't is insane, which is probably why she was a top vote getter. But she's an effective legislator. She's someone that resonates with a lot of people. And, she's someone that's very well respected throughout the state and in her district. Clearly, again, I'll keep repeating this, top vote getter in every part of that district, including Morris. It doesn't make sense to me that you would vote her off the line. It just seems like you're shooting your own foot.
No, you're right about that. No, you're right. And it sort of feeds the narrative. And I've been talking about it in my local Hudson County podcast this week and on my studio show. And listen, with Assemblyman Ciattarelli being kicked off the line in Hudson County, and now we're seeing this in Morris County to a Republican, it's sort of, it's really sort of feeding the narrative. And again, I don't like to give a lot of these progressive groups any credit because sometimes they're a little wacky, but New Jersey progressive Democrats and like other progressive coalitions want to go to court on this. And they really want to contest the fact that, hey, the line just isn't healthy. And look what's going on. We're having legislators that are successful, right, that are doing work. And look what's happening to them. They're being sort of pushed out of the way for reasons that, quite frankly, aren't public. Like, for example, in Hudson County, Assemblyman Ciattarelli is the majority whip, and something happened where he had falling out with the mayor of the city of Bayonne. Now, we can argue whether or not a mayor should be that powerful in terms of influencing the line in a county, especially in a district, when there's the argument to be made that that's what the county chair is for. So that's the hoopla in Hudson. It seems like in Morris with Assemblywoman DeCroce, that she's not getting that same love either. And it just seems like there's nobody giving an explanation other than, well, she's just getting pushed out. That's not good enough.
No, it's not good enough. Again, she's an effective legislator. In the general election, she was a top voter. Again, I see demands to me that they didn't vote Jay Weber. They didn't award Jay Weber the line, Assemblyman Weber. Yes, I know there are people in the state that are ultra conservatives that absolutely adore him. But at the end of the day, he has been dwindling. He hasn't been effective. He lost against, in his congressional race, he lost against Congresswoman Cheryl. Handily defeated him. He is dwindling in votes in his district in that, again, Betty Lou, I call her Betty Lou. That's not to be disrespectful. I consider her a dear friend. This isn't somebody that I just served with in the assembly. She is to me victorious Betty Lou. And so victorious BLD, it doesn't make sense to me that they would knock off victorious BLD when she's been victorious. So I think it's silly. I think it's a stupid move. I hope she prevails off the line in a primary, and she certainly has my support. I'm not going to pretend that I'm unbiased here. I'm absolutely biased. I've served with both of them in the legislature, and I can tell you right now, I would want her to represent me because she doesn't make speeches. She doesn't just make speeches on the floor that people share and think, wow, this is really cool. She works very hard to be proactive and to stop bad legislation in its tracks and to work with others to build coalitions, to create cooperation, and to be an effective legislator. And if people are trying to do the whole thing with the gas tax, I'm over it. You know what? That happened in 2015, and she was reelected. So, okay, she was reelected in her district. It's been many years since. And additionally, Reagan voted to raise taxes. So she did it once. All right. That's not a reason many, many years later to kick her off the line when, again, I'm going to keep repeating this because it bears repeating. She was the top vote getter in the last election in the general.
Now, listen, Maria, you're absolutely right. And, sort of going back to the premise of whether or not these party lines are healthy in New Jersey and whether or not we still need to adopt them when it comes to primaries. And again, we keep hearing both sides of the argument where I just had a county chair on my local podcast 2 weeks ago, and her response as a county chair was like, well, listen, when I go vote and I close that curtain, like I already know who I'm voting for. I can go on a ballot. I can just go and find the names and I'll vote. That's it. It's not that hard. It's not that difficult. Like if you know who you're voting for, just look for the name on the ballot. But on the flip side, and I talked to some other,
somebody who is a chair who is very involved in campaigns.
Of course. And then I talked to a fellow journalist this past week, and he said to me, well, while the county chair has a point, the problem is that sort of waters down, again, sort of the opportunity for voters not to sort of be, sort of unduly influenced by the county machine. And of course, listen, we all know how strong it is in Hudson. On the blue side, we all know that in parts of Bergen, parts of Morris, et cetera, where it's the opposite. And it just seems like, when it seems to Assemblywoman DeCroce, listen, based on her following that I'm seeing online and based on her record, I could see her winning off the line. And then the problem is once she wins off the line, it just creates this disarray within the party. And again, we've talked about it before. There's enough that the NJGOP has to struggle with because they're just not very organized. And I know I'm going to piss off some people again. I don't care. But the point is that, when you see really good legislators, okay, ones that are really working hard in their district for their constituents. And for whatever reason, you brought up Jay Weber. I had a chance to meet Assemblyman Weber years ago. He was a nice guy. He was a gentleman to me. But you know what? That part of Morris is really changing. And I'm not saying it's becoming completely blue, But at the municipal level, a lot of municipal committee seats are going to Democrats, and that area is slowly turning blue. And someone like Jay Weber, who, as you mentioned, conservatives, I mean, fiscal conservatives, social conservatives, they love him. And I understand that, but I think that Jay's window to be influential has closed. We saw it in the election against Mikey Sherrill. Now, again, listen, it was kind of hard to go up against a woman, a former service, a woman in the service who served honorably. That was a really hard mountain for Jay to climb. But even still, policy-wise, Jay, listen, and there are some things fiscally that I can agree with on, but along social lines, you know what, New Jersey, and we talked about it off the air, New Jersey is just one of these states where along social issues, it really depends in what pocket of the state you live in. I think that's the bottom line. I think it's not a crazy blue state. Like, we're not California where it's like they're inept, right? And, or let's say Michigan or New York State. But New Jersey, consistently Democrat. They've elected a Democrat in every presidential election going back to Bill Clinton. Congressional seats have changed dramatically. Local municipal governments have changed dramatically in 30 years. Again, I'm not saying that someone like Jay isn't serviceable to Republicans, but the fact that people may say he's still influential, he's just not. Again, no disrespect to Jay Weber, but we got to face the reality here.
I think the unfortunate thing about our party, and I'm not, when it comes to Republicans, and again, everybody, we can throw missiles at the Democrat Party. We're not saying that they're without flaws, that there aren't issues. I certainly am not a registered Democrat, but
I heard you were. Some people told me you were.
I know people make assumptions over anything based on no information, and it's cute. It's adorable. I like that people even pay attention. So, but the reality is, I think it's important to have legislators that are effective. And again, Victoria SBLD, super effective. This is not a legislator that just blows hot air, makes great speeches on the floor. This is somebody that, and this is what people have to understand about the legislative process. You have a bill that could be a bad bill, or it's a well-intended bill. It's not necessarily a bad idea, but policy-wise and how it's written, it's a terrible bill. And rather than waiting for it to get to the floor and then speak about how terrible it is and how this is going to affect everyone. And this is someone who she proactively looks at these bills. She serves on pretty much every committee. She doesn't serve on two committees. A lot of legislators serve on like one or two committees, maybe three. I served on three, and then some committees that were, special committees for specific purpose. So, but she serves on probably, it's certainly over 5 committees. Like, she is on a lot of committees. So she's seeing these bills, and she's going to Democrats. She's talking to those that are authoring these bills about the issue. She's trying to work with them to change these bills, to make amendments, to squash them before they get to the floor. This is someone who is more effective than people, especially the Republicans who voted her off the line, who are clearly ignorant and unaware, are giving her credit for. I don't want the person that's going to wait till a bill is on the floor. I don't want the Republican that's going to wait till a bill is on the floor in a majority Democrat assembly legislature and then give a great speech. Nice speech, buddy. But what did you do to stop the bill from the jump? I want those legislators that are proactive. And also, you know what, in New Jersey with COVID, with a lot of small businesses suffering from a lot of the policies instituted from the executive side of our government, you know what, like with Republicans being ultra conservative socially and fighting these culture wars that nobody wins, nobody cares about Dr. Seuss. Okay, nobody, I can tell you a lot of people that I know are dealing with real issues. They want their kids back in school. I can't say how many people that I've met had issues with getting unemployment. They've lost their jobs. They're losing their businesses. Okay. And some people have lost loved ones. So enough with the culture wars, enough with the nonsense, enough with these, tests as these litmus tests of who's the most pure, who's the most conservative. I want people that are going to be effective and that are going to get the job done.
No, that's
End
fair.
of story.
I'm with you. And I think that's
she's that person. So it's stupid. And that's why she was, again, top vote getter.
I'm with you, and you make a lot of good points. You make a lot of great points there. And again, listen, you know me, I'm a bit of a culture warrior myself, but I'm also a realist, and I also understand that policy matters, and I'm a policy nerd, and I want people out in the legislature that are representing us, representing things, good, well, not values, but good policy making. And sometimes we're not getting that. Speaking of Republicans, also under the microscope, Maria, gubernatorial hopeful, Jack Ciattarelli, who's apparently getting some people now in the field. It's getting a little crowded, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But apparently Jack Ciattarelli, this is via Insider NJ, did file an Oprah request back in February that didn't go anywhere. And apparently this week he told the custodian of government records at the office of the governor that he's now filing a lawsuit to compel compliance. And apparently, according to the Oprah request, I think what Jack's trying to get done here, I think he's trying to get information out there about what happened in nursing homes during this pandemic and whether or not Murphy acted irresponsibly. And this is the thing, though, Maria, we've talked off the air about this. It seems that, listen, it's April already. And no disrespect to Jack. And this past weekend, we had baseball season debut. During the Yankee game, I saw Jack's commercial 5 times. It was a very subtle one. He had his sleeves rolled up, had a tie on. He was just very, I wouldn't say vanilla, but he was very, sort of matter of fact. And I think those are the type of commercials that usually resonate in an election year, but for whatever reason, whether it's attacking the governor about nursing home deaths and how complicit he and or the Department of Health were, or the highest property taxes in the country, it seems like, I don't want to call them antics, but it seems like actions like this still aren't sticking with people. Like the idea, listen, no one's saying he's as egregious as Andrew Cuomo. I mean, Andrew Cuomo has blood on his hands. Some people are trying to make the case that Murphy's the same as Cuomo. I don't think that's the case based on what I'm reading, but there are still people in the state that want some accountability. They want some culpability or at least answers from Governor Murphy's office. I don't know if this lawsuit is the right move for Jack, but again, his campaign's not getting traction. I don't know if this is just going to jumpstart it all of a sudden.
I don't know. It doesn't hurt. Right now it's not necessarily hurting him to do this. But it also isn't necessarily garnering the attention that I'm sure that they want. You never know what you'll find. So it honestly doesn't hurt to do it and to compel them to, abide by this Oprah request and to get information. Maybe it is a Cuomo situation, maybe it isn't. So again, it doesn't hurt to do it. But I think the point that I do agree with that's valid is that the attacks aren't necessarily sticking. It's like G.I. Joes. We see a lot of missiles being launched, but it ain't hitting anybody, it's just kind of like that right now. So nothing is really sticking. But I think what would really be helpful to these candidates that are really trying to set themselves apart in the Republican Party against Murphy, who is in everybody's face every day, is to really start highlighting their point of view, their vision. What are they going to do? And also just who they are. I still feel like some of these ads don't really tell me much about these candidates.
No, they don't.
Or maybe they do. I think there was one ad that I looked at recently that gave me a sense of one particular candidate. It's not the sense that I want. This is not, it made me think, wow, that's not somebody I want to support. But, at least it was a clear point of view as to who this person was, what their views were. It was an interesting story, and I think that, again, these candidates really need to not just throw missiles, but maybe really have a story, have a vision that's going to resonate with voters in New Jersey.
Well, speaking of resonating with voters, this past week, it was reported that when it came to fundraising totals and obviously meeting the threshold for matching funds, it seems that former Somerset County Freeholder Brian Levine met the threshold. And somehow within a short amount of time, Reverend Phil Rizzo, a man of the cloth, is also someone who met the threshold this week. And, for our audience out there, this Monday night live at 7 p.m. on Real Talk with Fernando Uribe via Eisen and Jay, I'll be talking to Phil Rizzo live on the program, and I think we'll have a very interesting conversation about a lot of things about his campaign and some of the things he sort of put out there on social media. But getting back to the candidates, Maria, it seems that, whether it's Jack and again, Brian Levine, again, I mean, no disrespect to Hirsch Singh. He also met the threshold, but I don't think raising money is a hard thing for Hirsch. Again, no disrespect to him, but it seems like he met the threshold. But someone like Phil Rizzo is getting a lot of traction online. Now, again, having a social media following doesn't translate to votes. And we'll find out on June 8th whether or not that translates to votes for Phil, because right now he seems like sort of, a hot commodity right now. I know last week, I mean, notwithstanding, your opinion of what you think of the Attilas Gym owners, but last week, he was at the Attilas Gym, filmed a pretty, not witty, but kind of a strong and very forceful commercial with Frank Trombetti, with Ian Smith. And, again, I think a lot of his followers online, I think are sort of falling under the trap of, he's got a good social media presence. He's got a lot of likes and follows and views. But the problem is that doesn't translate to votes, and it remains to be seen, because Jack, for some faults that we can find in the campaign, not with Jack the person, but with the campaign execution, Jack's been at this for 3 years. He's been going up and down the states. He's gotten endorsements from county committees, from other organizations, and, sink or swim, Jack is right now the presumptive favorite. But somehow people online think that whether it's, someone like Phil Rizzo is generating momentum. I think we have to be a little more objective about how we look at these campaigns, Maria. What do you think?
Maybe, but I mean, is he? Let's be honest. I think, is he, like, when you say Phil Rizzo is gaining momentum? Yes, he matched. He was able to fundraise, I believe it was $250,000, which is great. I mean, he does have people on his side that had huge fundraising war chests. For example, congressional candidate Kim Klacik, who raised over $6.5 million, and a lot of it was out of state, out of district money, not necessarily any in her district, and she lost horrifically. And it wasn't because of mass voter fraud. She lost before, everything, a couple times in that district. So she, and I'm sure, obviously these kind of people are donating as well, because it was kind of an overnight thing. But I mean, I look at his following, I look at the likes, and I look at Jack's following, and I look at the likes, and I'm not seeing what you're seeing. So I have to disagree. I think, is he catching some momentum? Sure, but I think you're overstating. I think you're vastly overstating the momentum that he's getting. And keep in mind, it's from that minority in our party that's ultra conservative. So yes, he's somebody that probably better represents that point of view. If you are anti-LGBTQ, if you basically hate gay people, yeah, he's your candidate. Because he has outwardly said things that were downright hateful to gay people. And I know a lot of gay Republicans that are like, can I just live? You know what I mean? So, and he's now having some controversy, and they're saying it's from Jack's camp. And hey, sometimes you have to put out all the stops. But, as far as him really building momentum, I think that remains to be seen. Will it be enough momentum to get him to win the primary? And again, if this is somebody that does win the primary, keep in mind, he hasn't really worked with a lot of these, different counties and Republican organizations and Republican clubs. And regardless of county line, because I'm all for primaries. And I've said this from the beginning. I love primaries. Bring it on. That's why,
No, you're right. Yeah. No, you're right.
I think he's going to win. But I'm a big supporter. So I think it's great that he's in this primary. But I think because it gives voters options. But I think that if he were to make it over the line, it's going to be like another Brett Schundler situation. Someone that won off the line and lost heavily. I don't think this is a candidate that, again, I think that he does represent a group, certainly a group of views within our party. And that's great. I think those voters feel like, hey, this is somebody that better represents me. It's great to have options and choices. And I think it keeps other candidates on their toes. Maybe Jack needs to work a little harder, and some, Brian Levine, or Hirsch Singh, So, but I just think it remains to be seen. I think this momentum right now is a bit overstated. I mean, I'm looking at his likes, I'm looking at his Facebook page, I'm looking at the tweets, and Jack's still outpacing him there.
No, listen, you're right about that. And again, Jack is still the presumptive favorite. And what I mean about sort of momentum right now is just, he's sort of like just the brand new guy in the race. I would argue that, if you want to jump into this like anybody else, you should have been doing this since last year. To just jump in and, in January, February, March, I just think it's poor planning. But again, I'm not the one running for governor. I'm not the one that all of a sudden gets an epiphany and wants to run for governor. I get that. So it's easy for me to sort of Monday morning quarterback this and critique campaigns. But again, I have to be objective here. Jack is still the favorite. And I'm not saying this to disrespect anybody on the other side of the other campaigns, because I know operatives on the other campaigns. And again, Monday, when I talked to Phil Rizzo, I'm going to press him on some of those comments he's made on social media, because again, at the end of the day, while there are pockets of the state that are, conservative, New Jersey, when it comes to a lot of social issues, this isn't Alabama. This isn't Mississippi. No disrespect to those states, but, we're not overwhelmingly socially conservative. Okay. There are pockets of the state that subscribe to certain ideas, but I think we just tend to try to be rational and commonsensical and not like overly bombastic or malicious. And I think that, there are some comments that, as you mentioned, we can make the case that they're hateful and they're not very, again, if he's a reverend.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's a reverend, right? So if you're a man of the cloth, I mean, they're a little hateful. So, I mean, I'm going to press him a little bit on Monday, aside from obviously other policy things that he's been putting out there. So we'll see. But getting back to Jack, and I really want to sort of dissect this because, again, I saw the commercial last week and it was very matter of fact. I thought it was better than the other one he did, the first one. But again, it's April. And listen, today it was 65 degrees again. It was 70 yesterday. As the weather gets warm, we talked about this before, Maria, as the weather gets warmer in New Jersey and the state's reopening slowly but surely, hopefully people are getting their unemployment. Hopefully people have gotten that stimulus check. The bottom line is that, again, people's attention span in New Jersey is going to be very weak going into the spring and summer. And listen, you and I pay attention, but a majority of New Jerseyans are going to be happy about being outside, going down to the beach, day drinking, whatever. They may not start paying attention to this campaign until Labor Day. And it seems that if Jack's the nominee against Phil Murphy, they'll be going up and down the state all spring and summer with appearances and rallies to some extent. But people aren't going to be paying attention until probably Labor Day. And by then, we can kind of make the case that perhaps the economy is a little bit better in New Jersey. People are, again, maybe regaining employment, maybe the state, again, because that stimulus money from Washington coming from the Biden administration, people might say, well, you know what, New Jersey's not that bad right now. We get it. Murphy, did this and that, but right now I'm okay. And it seems like that sort of short-sighted attention span, that's typical of Jersey politics.
Yeah, I think that those are some valid points. I think that right now, these candidates really need to work harder to really differentiate themselves and set themselves apart. But I will say this, it still is very early. I know, you're speaking specifically with Jack Ciattarelli. He's someone that does have some good people in his corner. And I know, when I talk to other Democrats, when I talk to, the other side, I can tell you this, they welcome a race against Phil Murphy and someone like Phil Rizzo because they know it's in the bag. They are afraid of someone like Jack Ciattarelli being the Republican candidate for governor. And so that does say a lot. I think that says that this is somebody who still has time and opportunity to differentiate themselves, who still has time and opportunity to, right now you're in a primary still. And so he, obviously he's going to have to run the race like a primary, but also be focused on a general and be focused as if he's going to win. But, you are going to have to start getting out of just the red areas and start getting into those purple blue areas because it is going to be a statewide race. So, I think that there's still an opportunity and everything, but I haven't met these other candidates. And I'm sure that there are really great things about them and maybe negative things as well. I can't really speak to them personally because I haven't met them. I don't know. But I have met Jack Ciattarelli, and this is somebody that is, very smart, very charismatic, very authentic. And so I don't think that that's quite come across in some of these ads. But I think that in person, when he is who he is, his best self, does resonate with a lot of people. It is, easy to understand. He's very good at communicating policy in a way that's easily digestible. And, I know people tend to like cult of personalities. People tend to like those bombastic personality types that say outlandish things and are like, like these short statements and everything, because it's fun, it's exciting, it's engaging. But to some extent, I don't want just somebody that's bombastic, that's, saying things like no to this, no to that, no, don't get vaccinated because it's a conspiracy. And I don't want somebody that's going to pander to, any cult movements. I want a leader. And to me, I want a real effective leader. And I think that's what people are looking for in a candidate who is going to be a real leader. And I think in a time where, let's be honest, and it's not because of massive voter fraud, Trump lost for a reason. I think that says a lot. And I'm not singing the praises of the Biden administration whatsoever. Obviously, we have a humanitarian crisis at our border right now. But I think that, which as a Latina really concerns me, but I think that we need leaders. I need a hero, like the song. I want a hero, especially in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So I want one of them to step up and feel like that.
No, you're right. And speaking about message, I mean, let's go back to, and again, this is something that sort of separates. I mean, it's correlated to Jack, but the bottom line is that we've talked about it off the air a lot. The NJGOP still is not, I think, impressing me. And I'm not trying to, spit rhymes here, but it just seems that in a lot of legislative races, I'm still not seeing the NJGOP really getting out there for Republicans. Again, there are some districts that Republicans tend to be a little safe in, especially down the shore. But there are some where some Republicans might face some challenges. And it just seems, again, maybe I love chess. So I'm always trying to think 2 or 3 moves ahead. And I don't know if there's a sense of complacency within the NJGOP and the hierarchy, because again, no one's spoken to me about anything, but it just seems like there's not a sense of urgency right now. And I'm not saying that flipping the Assembly or the Senate here in New Jersey is possible during this cycle, but you know what? You can kind of make a dent, or at least put a scare into a lot of these incumbent Democrats that have been there forever. And in some districts, maybe try to illustrate the fact that, hey, listen, this person's been your legislator for 5, 10, maybe longer, maybe 20 years. As long as the Democrats have had a majority in the legislature, which is going on 20 years now, it just seems like there's no sense of urgency from the NJGOP. I don't see panels online via Zoom or StreamYard, again, with the NAACP or with the Hispanic Statewide Chamber of Commerce or other organizations that at the end of the day, it's not about pandering. Again, I'm the one that calls out and denounces identity politics right away. But at the same time, I think they also have to be a little cognizant that, listen, New Jersey, like the country, is becoming browner, right? That's the bottom line. It's becoming browner. No disrespect to my Black friends, but there are parts of New Jersey that are becoming browner. These are the demographics, along with African Americans, that the NJGOP really has to go hard in, put all their chips in the middle of the table and reach out to them and say, listen, what has been the ROI for you concerning Democrats in your district? Let's have an honest conversation. It seems like the NJGOP is just willing to sort of say, we got house money in some districts. Let's put a little bit of an effort in some of these other races. But, oh, well, we'll see what happens. I'm sorry. You want to talk about leadership. That's bad leadership.
I think that it's what I've said before, in that you have to get out of your backyard. You are going to have to, and it's only pandering. You assume I don't know English and just speak Spanish, when you're talking to some of these Latino Hispanic groups. To me, you do need to get out of your backyard. You do need to take, like, the statewide Hispanic Chamber. I mean, this is an organization with a bunch of business owners that are very much engaged, that are very successful, that want to see the state succeed, that want policies that are going to allow their businesses to grow, policies that are going to stifle their growth. And so these are all great, the African American Chamber of Commerce, And there's so many great organizations that, you really do want to make relationships with and speak to. And because even if you don't get that vote, I mean, you're putting your name out there. You don't have to pander. You don't have to pretend. Talk about what you care about. Talk about the issues you care about. Maybe they like you, maybe they won't, but you're still at least getting your foot in the door. And if you want a chance at winning a general election in New Jersey, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone and really engage and speak to these groups. There are so many that I think that would consider some of these Republican candidates. I say some loosely, but that would consider. And I think that you're right. The NJGOP has to do, if they want to have a bigger footprint. Right now, they're in the negative. In that, since I was in office, the amount of seats they've had some seats, they've had some losses, they've had some gains, but when you add it all up, I think they're still in the negative. They're not making gains, and so it also is in your backyard. It's again, advocacy and messages that matter to constituents, and you have people. You got to give them a reason to vote for you, or the other person, you got to really give them a reason to not vote for the other person. So I think again. I think there is merit to what you're saying, but it's interesting. I think that Democrats are having their issues as well. They're having their infighting. There's a lot of stuff happening in the Democrat Party right now. They're dealing with primaries as well. Up in the north, Assemblyman Jamal Hawley is running off the line. You have a primary between Assemblyman Gordon Johnson and Assemblywoman Valerie Veneeri-Huddle that is pretty contentious so far in a positive. Like, I haven't seen so much negativity, but pretty contentious and competitive. And I want to highlight that campaign, both of those campaigns real quick, because, I know you were talking about Republicans, but from both of those candidates, and I served with both of them. I know them, I respect them, but they are doing a really great job, which is probably why that race is, to me, seemingly very competitive. They're doing a really great job of differentiating themselves and highlighting why they're the best candidate, getting support, getting people to endorse them. And the types of endorsements they're getting really speak to the type of candidate that they are and who they are and their story. And so, just for those that are running, look to some of those races, because they are really setting, to me, I look at some of the ads that are being put out there and I have an idea of who this person is. And whether you agree or not, you get a sense of their story. You just kind of feel them. You're just kind of like, I get you. And it's really great highlighting their record, their experience. They're really great at telling who they are. And I think they're really both resonating. Again, why it's so competitive. But when you have this type of competition, when you have these primaries for Republicans, that's a really great opportunity. Why aren't we seizing it?
I agree with you. And it's April, and maybe some people might be saying, as they're watching this, Fernando, relax, it's still April, there's still plenty of time. No, these months go by quickly. And it's again, once the weather gets warmer and we find more things to do, people's attention span changes. Speaking of endorsements real quick, it was in the news cycle this week, Maria. It seems that, again, Jack most likely is the presumptive favorite to win the Republican nomination coming up on June 8th. Maybe because it's the primary process, but former Governor Chris Christie has yet to weigh in on this primary race or even give an endorsement of anybody. And at the same time, it's being reported that apparently Jack Ciattarelli's campaign has not been actively seeking out the former governor's endorsement either. I don't know. Is this like a showdown of egos here, or is it just, well, it's still the primary? Maybe Governor Christie doesn't want to get involved just yet. What are you hearing?
I think that the candidates that are running in the Republican race don't care. That's what I'm hearing. I think that if Chris Christie, I think they probably are like, don't endorse me. That's a good thing. I think, I don't think they care. I don't think they necessarily want his endorsement. And I don't think it's an endorsement that would really sway voters, to be quite honest.
It's not. It really isn't. And I mean, aside from,
they might be asking him behind the scenes, like, just hold off, buddy.
No, listen, I mean, aside from being a fellow Cowboys fan, there isn't a lot I like about Chris Christie to begin with. I mean, there's a lot of policy things I disagree with. There's a lot of things that run me the wrong way, especially during the second term that has been dissected to death already. And I think you're right. I think you hit it on the head. I think maybe right now, whether it's Jack Ciattarelli or the other Republicans in the field, they're like, you know what? Well, we have ourselves to worry about. If Chris Christie doesn't want to weigh in right now, it seems like he's busy on ABC being a panelist, right, on George Stephanopoulos' show. And maybe he's pondering running for president in 2024, which I think would be an absolute failure. But again, he's entitled to do what he wants with his life. But I think right now you're right. I think the nominees are, listen, we got to worry about us. If at some point, whoever wins the primary on the morning of June 9th, if Chris Christie decides I'm going to stay out of this, I think you're right. It's not going to help sway. If Jack's the nominee, I don't think that's going to give Jack a 2 or 3 point boost because Chris Christie is endorsing him. I think on the flip side, I think a lot of pockets of New Jersey are still very salty about Chris Christie, and it might not help Ciattarelli in the long run.
Yeah, and here's the thing, when people talk about Republicans being salty about Christie, I give credit where credit's due to every candidate, every person that's been in office. There are a lot of them that have done some great things. He's enacted some really great policies, but, for a lot of Republicans, he wasn't necessarily helpful in a lot of the legislative races. And while he won and was fundraising and everything, we lost a lot of seats under his tenure. And so, there's certainly a sore spot about that. And so I think that these candidates that are running are probably just like I said, good. We don't necessarily need or want your endorsement. I don't think his endorsement would really sway anyone in the Republican Party in New Jersey. I certainly wouldn't think
No, I agree with you. It's almost comparable to, if you remember, like in 2009, 2010, after 8 years of George W. Bush, a lot of Republicans that were running for like House seats or Senate seats weren't very eager to sort of pick up an endorsement from the former president. They were like, well, okay, he's sort of, he did his 2 terms, he rode off into the sunset, and okay, it seems like, there isn't an interest there. The same thing might happen next year, right? In 2022, when there are House and Senate races, maybe a lot of Republicans won't be actively seeking the 45th president's endorsement. Who knows? That might be the case, and maybe that's the case here in New Jersey when it comes to Chris Christie. Maria, let's switch gears here a little bit. There's an issue, I think, in New Jersey that, I think it's important to give our audience a timeline of these events because they're not going to understand really why it's creating so much chatter. But Esther Suarez is the Hudson County prosecutor up here where I live. She is a name that's being thrown out there to be the next U.S. attorney here in the Garden State. You see, Senator Robert Menendez has been heavily campaigning for her with the Biden administration. It's my understanding that the Biden administration, along with Attorney General Merrick Garland at the DOJ, are still heavily vetting a list of names being given to them by, I'm sure, senators like Menendez and others. And Esther Suarez, again, apparently is being heavily pushed by Senator Robert Menendez. And in recent weeks, the editorial chief at the Star-Ledger, Tom Moran, who I have no love for whatsoever, has really been going after her for some things, which I'll shed some light on. But obviously, Tom Moran's one of those journalists that for some time was kind of going heavily after Robert Menendez during his trial. From time to time, he kind of tends to go after Democrats, not too often. He did with Menendez, but when it comes to like liberal and progressive policies in New Jersey, he doesn't really sort of attack them. But the bottom line is that right now, Esther Suarez has a big microscope on her. We have the ongoing issue about what happened during the Katie Brennan situation up here in Hudson County. Obviously, that was a big thing during then candidate Phil Murphy's campaign in 2017 when Phil Murphy won the gubernatorial election, and then subsequently when he took office, Al Alvarez, the gentleman accused of sexually assaulting Katie Brennan, was somehow employed in the Murphy administration for almost a full calendar year, and nobody knew how he got hired, what he's doing. We knew he was collecting a paycheck, a taxpayer-paid paycheck, but nobody knew. Tom Moran was calling that out. Tom Moran now was calling out Esther Suarez because of some ethical complaints that have been hovering around her. And back in May of 2019, at an event at the Liberty House, beautiful venue right on the water by Liberty State Park, it's being alleged that Tom Moran saw the Hudson County prosecutor in the hallway, was trying to reach her for comment. Apparently, he claims that he just tapped her on the elbow to try to get her attention. Esther Suarez is now alleging that Tom Moran grabbed her elbow. It's being alleged that this was brought to the attention of the Star Ledger management back in May 2019. No investigation was done. Apparently, nothing became of it. Now it's surfacing again. Now it seems like Esther Suarez, the Hudson County prosecutor, along with Gabriel Gurwal, the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey, are now looking into Tom Moran and whether or not this is a serious offense, whether or not he assaulted her. And it seems like some people are concerned that, Tom Moran is a guy who, he's still a journalist. I call him a cheerleader, but maybe there's an attempt to silence him. This might be setting a bad
What
precedent.
event are you talking about, by the way?
Sorry?
What event was he trying to get her attention at?
It was a fundraiser at the Liberty House, right? Near the Liberty Science Center. It's like a nice venue. It's like a catering hall. A lot of weddings.
What was the fundraiser for?
Yeah, they have like the big chessboard out in the lawn, the patio.
Yeah, no. But what was the fundraiser for? Just curious.
It was a political event in Hudson County. It was a fundraiser. It wasn't for her per se, but it was Hudson County, Democratic event. And apparently he attended. He tried to get her attention. He's claiming he just tapped her on the elbow to get her attention. She reacted with, quote, "Don't touch me." And apparently, again, during that time, it died down. Star Ledger management was made aware of it. Nothing happened to Tom Moran. But now, in April of 2021, he's written some columns critical of Esther, critical of Senator Menendez for nominating Esther Suarez. And here we are today. Some people are saying, it seems like Suarez and even Gabriel Gurwal are trying to silence the free press.
You know what? Pardon the invective, but they can get fucked, because as someone that has been on the receiving end of an actual assault, to say that somebody who, even if they slightly grabbed your elbow, and in the military there's always that thing, permission to touch, but even if they slightly grabbed your elbow to get your attention, within the context, if you say "don't touch me" and then they stop, you know what I'm saying? In that context, they were just trying to get your attention. They clearly stopped. There was no bruising. They didn't grab you. They didn't pull you. They didn't yank you down. I believe that he was genuinely just trying to get her attention. Maybe he grabbed her elbow. Maybe to her it was a little more forceful than she would have liked. Maybe it was just a tap. But regardless, to equate it with assault, as someone that's been assaulted, I'm offended. And clearly this is somebody that doesn't have empathy when it comes to assault in the first place, as we saw with Katie Brennan. So, this allegation that, unless I see a video of him, grabbing her forcefully and pulling her to the ground, and, when she says stop, he doesn't stop and everything like that, I'm just going to say, what, get fucked. Because it's a disservice to real victims. It's a disservice to real, to people that have truly been assaulted, that still have trouble coming forth with the horrific acts they experienced. And I'm not trying to minimize the idea that people, forcefully touch and everything. But as someone that's, a former legislator, when I was in office, I had people tap me on the shoulder, because you have people, to get my attention. Nobody grabbed my butt. Nobody grabbed me in areas that were uncomfortable. I've had somebody kind of, tap my elbow and everything. And, I can, if I were to say, please don't touch me, and they stopped, there you go. I'm not going to allege assault. Nobody likes to consistently be touched or grabbed. Some people are a little, more uncomfortable with that. But within the context, this doesn't, to me, rise to the level of an assault. And it does seem like it is, some sort of retaliatory effort to silence a journalist.
And this is the thing too. And again, let me just give more context to our audience here, because, Tom Moran's written, again, a lot of critical articles about Suarez's nomination by Senator Robert Menendez. And a lot of the ethics troubles that people are alleging, or at least bringing to light, is the fact that, again, with the Katie Brennan situation, she's gone on record saying, well, I was made aware of what happened, but I know about the emails. I got some emails. I didn't really look at them. I didn't really know that they were sent to me. The problem, though, Maria, is that, and again, credit to David Wildstein. Not the most ethical guy in the world, but again, give him his due. He can find a needle in a haystack. He can find dirt.
He's in people's bushes. I swear he has us all bugged. He probably has us bugged right now.
Probably.
Everyone.
But David Wildstein filed an Oprah, and it was discovered that, when these memos were sent out about the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office, the sex crimes unit specifically, when it came to this complaint, copied her on it. So it's not like, oh, I get it. You check your email in the morning, maybe you get a lot of junk, you just browse through it. No, like it was email that was read. It was correspondence sent to her specifically about the situation. And a lot of people in New Jersey, though, Maria, feel that the prosecutor here in Hudson County dropped the ball. Obviously, the case was transferred to the county, right, because of conflict of interest. But the bottom line is that it just seems like, again, I have no love for Tom Moran. He doesn't like me. He's contacted my producers because he doesn't like me picking on him, whatever. But the point is that the reality is that there's an optic here that because of these critical articles of her, again, her nomination, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the Biden administration and Attorney General Merrick Garland do eventually, because those seats have to be filled. You just can't leave the U.S. Attorney's office open. I mean, it has to be filled. But again, I think the allegation is that Tom's been so critical of her nomination and of Sarah Menendez, and now it's pushback. Now it's like, let's go after Tom. And again, I'm not trying to minimize what happened, but if this happened in May 2019, and it's being alleged that the Star Ledger management was made aware of it, no investigation was done. Apparently, it just died out. And now it's all of a sudden getting fire again. It just seems like the timing's a little suspect. And it seems like the office of the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office is getting a little sensitive, according to a lot of people, because of this. And whether or not she gets appointed remains to be seen. But there are a lot of ethical questions that she has yet to answer. I'm sorry, that's not me being malicious. That's a legitimate point, though.
It is a legitimate point. And I think that, in my opinion, it certainly is suspect. Again, assault is a very serious allegation. And as someone that has been assaulted, I take those allegations seriously. And I think that people cannot be loose with those kinds of allegations. We want to encourage people to come forth, but when you make a mockery of a very serious issue, it's offensive. And so, I'm not trying to minimize or invalidate however she may have felt, but it is odd timing that when she's receiving pressure from the press, particularly this journalist, that she again says assault. And I have to say, I mean, within the context of the conversation, again, it seems that there's both sides in the truth, but it doesn't seem like this is something that rises to the level of assault that should be investigated as it is. If as a prosecutor, I don't know. I'm just kind of disturbed that this is happening. I know that you're not a big supporter of Tom Moran, but it's clear that you're supporting him right now in that you believe that this is a retaliatory thing. And it is, and whether or not her actions during the Katie Brennan were wrong or not, she may have handled the case properly and referred it out due to, even though there are questions surrounding, due to the fact that, she had to and referred it to another county. It is odd, her actions after, if that makes sense. And I agree. I don't think it bodes well to her argument that she acted properly.
I'm with you. And again, it remains to be seen. I'm sure tomorrow morning, David Wallstein will pull something out of a hat, and who knows, it'll get reported on New Jersey Globe. I mean, this guy finds everything. I mean,
finds everything. He really
he'll
does.
Find Jimmy Hoffa. I promise you, he'll find Jimmy Hoffa.
He's in your bushes right now. He's
probably
listening.
You know what? Yeah, I could see it right now in my driveway. I could probably see him, snooping around, saying like, "What can I get Uribe on?"
Seriously, he's already gone through your garbage can. He knows everything about you.
Well, guess what? He's going to see a.
That's a compliment. That's a compliment.
He'll see my recycling bin, and it's full of bottles of liquor, so he can deduce whatever he wants there. Okay, Maria. Before I let you go here, because we're almost approaching the top of the hour, here's the topic real quick I want to close out our show with, because I think it's important that we keep our audience informed about. Listen, social media is a great invention. I can certainly list its pros and its cons. Online platforms like StreamYard that we're on right now, or Zoom, that enable or empower people to do commentary shows like what we're doing, or with what I'm doing every single week with my other 4 shows. I mean, these are things that have been extremely helpful, I think, for a lot of New Jerseyans. Maria, I'm really concerned because I think it's also creating an atmosphere where, again, all it takes is a computer or a smartphone to create a link, create, a profile and start doing this stuff. And sometimes I'm concerned. I'm sure people say the same thing about me. I'm just concerned about maybe the wrong people in New Jersey, especially that want to have their voice. So again, that's the great thing about the internet and social media. Everyone has a voice. I'm just concerned sometimes about the wrong people having a voice and trying to be influential, especially during an election year in New Jersey, and whether they're operatives, whether they are people that work in government, whether they are people that work in government affairs or in any other sort of organized industry. I'm always concerned about those people having an online presence because it may not always be on the up and up. I'm not going to name names. I don't want you to either so we don't get in trouble. But these are things that concern me right now because what you and I are doing is responsible. We're doing objective analysis and commentary. It's not the case.
Sometimes not objective, but I say it. I will say it's unbiased, or I will say it's biased.
But I think there's no way that anyone can say that our program is not reputable. It's not well done. It's not well constructed. It's not well produced. The problem is, I think that we're starting to see a rise in people having a voice, which is fine, have a voice, but they may not be doing it constructively or being productive with it. That really worries me because it sort of waters down and makes us look bad when we're trying to do a good thing. Do you get what I'm saying?
It's an interesting conversation. I guess, when you think of it, when we talk about freedom of speech and, obviously when people talk about it as a constitutional right, we're talking about it from a government perspective. You're free to say what you want to say, but you're not free from responsibility. So we're talking about everyday life and our private life and everything. So, when we're talking about social media, yes, technically you are free to say whatever you want, but you aren't free from responsibility. And when you're concerned about people that are not necessarily informed and are putting views that are uninformed, that are intentionally deceptive, trying to manipulate issues and facts, I think that's why even more so than ever, it's not that we need to silence these people. I don't believe in that. I believe that we need to be more informed ourselves, more engaged, and just more skeptical. The lack of critical thinking in our society is something to me that is truly disturbing. When I hear somebody say something, when I see something posted online, I'll ask questions. I'll post, is that a fact? Can you cite the source? Can you send me, the information that you're quoting? Can you please tell me how you came to that opinion? And, when I read the news, I don't watch the news. I don't watch the news a lot, local, but when it comes to national and everything, I don't watch it because I want time to cross-check it. I want time to look into it and, really scrutinize the source. So if I see something, an article about a study, I will actually, click the link to find the study. And, I have a job, I have kids, so I have hobbies, I have things I have to do. I'm on the board of this, on the board of that, and I still find time to quickly do that. And I think that we have to get better at scrutinizing information, really up our level of critical thinking, and really be skeptical of everything. I've had people share, and people talk about, and on the Republican side, which really bothers me. Come on, we can do better, Republicans and conservatives. You can do better. I'll see the people with it's mainstream media and everything. And, they're talking about bias from, what they deem to be liberal sources, yet they'll cite sources that are obviously skewed, have a very biased perspective, and are not factually accurate as well. So it hurts your credibility when you argue mainstream media. I see people that are social media personalities, that are big media via social media personalities, complaining about the media. You are the media, idiot. Like, you are the media. You're exactly what you're complaining about because you're providing misinformation to the masses. And so I think that we have to be skeptical of every source, not just, as Republicans like to say, the libtards and the liberals, but, Democrats, Republicans, we all need to be skeptical of everything that we're reading, everything that's being put out there. Take the time to cross-check it, understand the terms that you use, understand, just be better at at all of this, because, you know, for me, I think people should be able, you know what, I'm not going to silence people, you know, but we effectively silence them, if this makes sense, if we don't feed those kinds of monsters and we just walk away realizing this is an idiot or this is somebody that clearly is biased. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not a proponent of silencing people, but I am a proponent of upping our level of our, how would you say, our radar, better, like having a better radar when it comes to BS.
I agree. And we do it with credibility and integrity on the show, and we'll leave it there. And folks, again, I want to thank you for joining us here. We do have our next episode coming up in 2 weeks on Friday night, April the 23rd. So you definitely want to tune in for that. Make sure you share tonight's episode if you're just tuning in live. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I can't say enough about how proud I am of this project with Maria Rodriguez-Gregg. And again, no disrespect to all the tag teams participating this weekend in WrestleMania. This right here, Maria Rodriguez-Gregg, Fernando Uribe, the best damn tag team in the state of New Jersey or anywhere, especially about political commentary. So folks, mark out on your calendars. Once again, Friday night, April the 23rd at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Tune in for the next episode of Maria and Fernando Talking Jersey. Maria, any quick things before we say goodnight?
Yes. Victorious BLD is awesome, and be a skeptic.
You know what? Well said.
To put in one sentence.
Absolutely. You know what? Well said with that. Folks, again, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the beautiful weather. And again, we'll see you next time right here. Once again, Friday night, April the 23rd at 6 p.m. The latest edition of Maria and Fernando Talking Jersey right here on StreamYard and Facebook Live. Have a good night, everyone.